What's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple more interesting stories for you guys tonight. There seems to be a lot of interesting stuff going on in the world of bodybuilding this week, so I had to make another video today because something really cool happened. So just because the Olympia is right around the corner, just 3 weeks away, doesn't mean there's not other bodybuilding shows to talk about. This weekend, there's two more bodybuilding shows, the Legion Sports Festival and the Tsunami Pro in France, both of which are qualifiers for the 2025 Mr. Olympia. Now, the competitor list for both of those shows came out today, and I think the really interesting one is the show in France, the Tsunami Pro, because of the fact that Samson Dauda's name is on that competitor list at 3 weeks out from the Olympia. And this is the kind of stuff that I think really makes bodybuilding exciting. This is the kind of stuff that I like to see, and that we don't see very often. You very rarely, if ever anymore, see a top Olympian do a show right before the Olympia that does not need to qualify. Samson is obviously already qualified for the Olympia. He has no reason to do this show. And in years past, particularly last year, he did a lot of shows after the Olympia. The end of 2023 and then early 2024 doing the Arnold Classics. And that's one thing that I really like about Samson, is he's not afraid to compete and compete often, again, despite being top 3 in the world right now. I think this is really a badass and pretty boss move by Samson. I just made a video earlier today talking about his latest update at 3 weeks out, and everybody is talking about how good Samson has been looking in these updates leading up to the show. Samson's generating a lot of attention right now, and he's capitalizing on that and probably earning an early qualification for the 2025 Mr. Olympia, and then having potentially a lot of time to prepare just for that show. But knowing Samson, he might continue to compete, and that's what I like about him. Now, on one hand, obviously, I understand why there's top Olympians that don't do shows right before the Olympia. This show will be 2 weeks before the Olympia. Right now, we're just under 3. By the time this show happens this weekend, Samson will be just 2 weeks out of the Olympia. I understand why in some cases it might not be a smart idea. It's more hard to peak separately for 2 shows back to back than it is to peak for just one show. But on the other hand, as good as Samson has been looking in these updates, him competing 2 weeks before the Olympia, going into this show as a top 3 Olympian, is putting all these guys at the Olympia on notice. Every single person in that Olympia lineup is going to be watching this show this weekend to see what Samson looks like. And if Samson looks great at this show, every single one of those competitors is going to be thinking about Samson when they get to Vegas before they walk on that Olympia stage. This is an awesome, like I said, boss move. I like this a lot. I think it's really bold, it's really ballsy, and it's something, like I said, you just don't see this very often. And time will tell to see if it's a good strategy. Like I said, it could be a disadvantage to try to peak separately for 2 different shows. But you look at this lineup, we'll go through it here. Georgi Adakashvili, Sam Osher, Samson Dauda, Ali Edward, Enrico Hoffman, Fakar Kaplikan, Theo LaGuerrier, who's also qualified for the Olympia, by the way. I don't want to not acknowledge that. He's also doing the Olympia, so he's also competing at 2 weeks out. Josh Malley, Mo Insauer, Andrea Presti, still looking for that Olympia qualification, Sultan Raiden, and Chris Ziller. And I was reading some of the comments on some of the posts of this competitor list, and there were even some people leaving negative comments, saying, oh, he's just doing this for the money. He's just doing this for another paycheck. Well, yeah, he's a pro bodybuilder. Isn't that what you should be doing? I think, we praised Dexter Jackson for winning more shows than any other bodybuilder because he was the true definition of a pro. He didn't just rely on kicking back and collecting sponsorship money or waiting for a lucrative partnership. He was a pro bodybuilder. He went out and competed, and I like that Samson does that. I've got a lot of respect for that, and I think it's really cool. So I wanted to make sure that I pointed that out in this video because I think, like I said, time will tell if this is a good idea or not, if it makes it more difficult for him to peak for both shows, or maybe he looks so good right now that he just kind of cruises through this show, looks at this lineup and says, look, I know I'm going to win this thing. But then also, you've got to consider the fact that he's traveling to France, which granted, not too far from where he's at in the UK, but still, it's international travel right before the Olympia, before he's going to have to travel to the States. There's a lot of ways that you could look at this decision, but personally, I think it's really cool. Now, in addition to the France Pro, on the same day, you've got the Legion Sports Festival on September 28th, except that one's in Vegas. Pretty long lineup for this Legion Sports Festival, and we know one of the big names is doing it, Brett Wilkin. But we've got some interesting stuff here, so let's go through this lineup. There's a couple guys that we haven't seen in a while that are doing this show. Patrick's also coming back to this show. Justin Rodriguez, who we haven't seen in a while, is jumping in this one. Mac Truck, Wesley Boxey, is doing this show. So let's go through this lineup here. You got Lukman Ajibulu, Marcelo Alfonsi, Odilon Batista, Joey Belt, Alexander Bessedin, Mac Truck, Wes Boxley, Bobby Cardalemi, Mark Arthur Daughtry, Martin Hernandez, Hamza Jawad, Daniel Corman, Jason Lowe doing this show. Patrick Moore trying again. Maybe he's going to get a better placing here. I still kind of feel he may have been overlooked at that comeback show that he did a couple weeks ago. An Nguyen, Rashid Oldeker, Jonathan Emmanuel Padilla Gonzalez, Kenwoo Park, Dennis Reinhold, Justin Rodriguez, Bruno Santos, Ray Short, Brett Wilkin, and Keith Williams. So pretty long lineup here. I think obviously the guy that a lot of people are going to be looking at is Brett Wilkin. I think he's probably the favorite to win here based on these updates that we've seen from Brett. I don't think anybody can deny how impressive they are. And we're not going to know exactly how impressive he is until we see him on stage, but all indicators point to a really impressive package from Brett Wilkin. I am excited to see Patrick back. I hope maybe he gets a better call out here. Wes Boxley, Mac Truck's a friend of mine. I'm excited to see him compete. Justin Rodriguez, I think, throws an interesting wrench into this lineup. I looked at his update from 2 days ago. This was his most recent physique update. And honestly, sometimes it's hard to tell with Justin because he goes into a lot of these shows and you see updates like this. Really good lighting. He looks really lean. He looks vascular. This update, I don't think he looks as lean and vascular as he does even in some of the shows that he did relatively recently, where he looked really good in the updates. I don't even think he looks as good as he did in those updates in this update. And in those updates, he didn't even place well at those shows relatively. So I don't know. Justin's kind of a wild card here depending on how he looks. I think we've seen more impressive updates from Justin at just days out from a show as far as what kind of shape he's in. But I'm interested to see what kind of factor he's going to be in this lineup. But I think the main three guys that I'm looking at here are Patrick, Justin, and of course, Brett Wilkin. So we got two shows to watch this weekend, and both of them look to be pretty good lineups here. But it looks like the other thing here that's interesting is Bruno Santos doing this show. Now, Bruno, obviously, I think a lot of people felt some type of way about Bruno beating Andrea Presti at the UK show, the Europa Europe. Now, him being one of the only guys in this lineup that has recently won a show, I would assume he's also going to be one of the top factors here. But I think when I look back at 2024 and all the shows that we had, I would say some of the feedback for that show, I would probably put it in the top 3 as far as controversial decisions that fans really didn't seem to like. They didn't like Bruno beating Andrea Presti. I don't think it was a very convincing win. And if Brett comes into this show looking how I think he's going to look, I have a really hard time seeing Bruno beating Brett. But like I said, Bruno is the only guy that I see in this lineup that has won a show recently. He's also the only guy in this lineup that's already qualified for the Olympia. So I should point that out and give Bruno some props there because he's doing the same thing that Samson is doing. But I'm giving Samson a little bit of extra props because Samson is already a top 3 Olympian. This is one of his, I mean, you never know how many shots you're going to have at winning the thing. He's really in the conversation now. He's top 3. He looks really impressive. This is one of those years at the Olympia for Samson that it's very important that he really nails this. A guy like Bruno that's new to the Olympia, likely it's not going to be that big of a deal. But if I had to pick the winner for both of these two shows based on the lineup, I would go Samson Dauda for the Tsunami Pro in France, and I would go Brett Wilkin for the Legion Sports Festival in Vegas. Let me know who you guys got in the comments down below. And the final story that I've got for you guys today, I know I just talked about Rafael in the video that I posted earlier today, but we got a brand new update from Rafael shortly after I posted that video. And at risk of repeating myself, because I'm probably about to say the exact same thing, how impressed I am with the size that Rafael has been able to put on this year, the improvements that he's been able to make. I think I've said in the past that I would argue he's one of the most improved bodybuilders of this year, from this year to the last time that we saw him. And these updates, this is no joke, man. Rafael looks really good. He looks a lot bigger to me in these updates than what we saw from him a couple weeks out from the Arnold Classic Ohio, what we saw from him a couple weeks out from the Arnold Classic South America. He looks really big here, and that was often the knock against Rafael, was that maybe he just wasn't big enough. He was always very aesthetic. He had a pretty pleasing physique, but in these updates, he looks big, he looks grainy, he looks really, really dangerous, and I don't want to undersell how dangerous I think he's going to be. I've already said that I think he's going to be in the top 6, but I kind of wonder now if maybe that's even underestimating him. Maybe he places even higher than that. I mean, is there a chance that Rafael finds himself in 4th, 3rd, like really up there? I feel like he's coming to a point in his career where he might be at his all-time best. But that's going to wrap it up for this video, guys. I hope you did, in fact, enjoy it. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, click that bell notification icon if you have not already. And as always, I love you guys. Appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power, signing out. All right, guys, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. Also, check out my Instagram at NickStrengthPower. My Facebook page, which is simply Nick Strength and Power. My secondary YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Vlogs, for vlogs and bonus content that you will not see on this channel. And consider subscribing to my third YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Pokemon, which is all things Pokemon and trading card games, completely unrelated to this channel. So if you're into that, give that one a look. And all links to merchandise and social media will be in the description box below. If you guys want a Nick Strength and Power t-shirt, that will be in the Shopify link below. Have a great day.